Today, it's Edwin's Monday evening property rant. Hello again, it's Martin North from Digital Finance Analytics, working the latest post covering finance and property news with a distinctively Australian flavour. Of course, as it's Monday, Edwin's back with me. Hi, Edwin.
G'day, Martin. How you going?
Yeah, pretty good. Yourself?
Just trying to start on the renovations in the studio, so just had to get cracking. Got the timber, got the the delayed delivery of timber. So I thought before I start losing tradespeople left, right, and centre with all these lockdowns and everything else that's going on, and passports and all sorts of rubbish. So I thought I better get started, and it's going hell for leather.
Very good. Well, I saw that you'd tweeted out a picture of that timber, which is obviously extremely valuable these days. You know, it'll appreciate in value.
Well, yeah, some of it's going in the renovations, Martin. The half of it's going in renovations. The other half's going under my mattress. I'm hoping for it, to keep it safe.
Yeah, very good. There's a few things.
Some of the timber's a bit bent there.
I know. Yeah, we had some timbers quite recently delivered, and it was sort of round the corner, right? It was very convenient if you wanted to have a sculpted thing, but trying to make a straight wall, a bit more difficult.
Well, it's just as straight as a selling agent's market guide for a weekend auction, I say.
Yeah, very good. Now, I did a post earlier on today about the changes to strata, right? And basically in New South Wales, pets are now allowed.
Yes, that's right. That's it's exciting. It was a mixed bag of feelings for Dusty and Evan. They got excited and teary-eyed. It's finally come to fruition. They've been fighting hard for pets to be allowed in strata complexes. But on the other side of the coin, Martin, they're also shooting the dogs. What the hell's going on? I mean, the government just got no bloody idea.
No, I don't understand that at all. So basically, rescue dogs shot dead by New South Wales Council due to COVID-19 restrictions. That's crazy. Absolutely crazy.
Absolutely crazy. It's just farcical what's going on. I'm just happy that they don't have a mandate to shoot Latinos on site either. Because I've got to then really start taking cover.
Well, yeah, but I think you should look over the Tasman, right, into New Zealand. It's going crazy there too.
Oh, mate, we will hunt you, we will find you, and we will jab you. What the hell, Martin? What is going on with New Zealand? Our cousin, it is scary shit. That this is going bananas. That's what I'm just. The next thing after the renovation of the studios, I'm gonna start looking at barbed wire fencing and put electric fencing up as well around the perimeter of the property.
Well, it certainly makes you think about security matters and things like that. But to know New Zealand is now looking as though it's going to follow the New South Wales path. They are trying to see whether they can, get it under control. But we will see. And interestingly, you commented as well on my post today with regard to the inspection. So something else I covered was a domain article talking about the fact that, of course, you can't now have group inspections. You have to have individual inspections, right? And all the agents were grizzling about the extra time and effort that it takes. But, of course, listings down again.
Well, that's correct. Look, agents can complain and they can bitch and whine and do whatever they want to do. But if they really had the best interest of, in most cases, it's the tenants that are put out, and it's absolutely shameful. Yes, listing numbers are down about 3,200, 3,300 less than last year. Than this time last year. It's the numbers are absolutely bottoming out. But the stories that I get from a lot of the agents that we visit is a lot of people are scared. They're scared. They don't know what's going on. They don't, there's a lot of fear. The Ultra Strand has put a lot of fear in the industry. People are asking, which is something we're going to discuss later on as well. They are asking the selling agents if they're being vaccinated, what type of precautions they're taking. But then with all the fear, all the misinformation that's been given out there by the government as well, and also the shifts and turns and about faces and a rule for thee but not for me, all these hypocritical mandates that they put out. Is it any wonder that people are becoming fearful of other people entering their homes? And also a lot of agents just simply don't know what they're doing, Martin. They really don't know what they're doing.
Absolutely. Well, there was an interesting communication earlier on from somebody who was a tenant, right, and basically saying, "What's my rights? This agent wants to show somebody around my property. What are my rights?"
Well, that's the thing, Martin. It's Rihanna and people that are watching this video. Look, I really encourage them to go and have a look at the feed on this, the Twitter feed in this particular tweet, and Rihanna put out, and I replied to what the questions that she was asking. In essence, the regulations that are under the act that we're governed by, or that the agents are governed by, we're meant to give, or as tenants, you've got to give reasonable access. And reasonable access, Martin, is as far as the NCAT is concerned, or the tribunal is concerned, reasonable access is half an hour or one open inspection per week. That's reasonable access. And you can argue till the cows come home. Other agents will say, no, reasonable access is 3 or 4 or this or that, whatever it is. But the tribunal will always go back to, in my opinion, will always go back to one open house inspection over a period of half an hour. That's the reasonable access. But then there's the access that you always get if you've got a good standing with the tenant. And most of these selling agents are very bombastic, very in your face, and they're trying to dictate to tenants. They try to lord it over the tenants and try to put pressure on the tenants. In this case, this is what they've done. So this poor girl is really perturbed. She's confused. She's angry. She's frustrated. She's fearful. All this it's a mixed bag of emotions. So look, for the people that follow us and people that watch this, reasonable access is half an hour. And you've got to be firm on expressing to the agent, telling the agent in no uncertain terms that you want them to make sure that there's only one person under the COVID the guidelines at the moment. Agents are only take one individual, that not one couple, that's not one family, it's one individual through the property at a time. Now, whether you give that individual 5 minutes or 10 minutes or 15 minutes or whatever the case may be, that's up to the agent to decide. Obviously, there's a lot of agents are not doing this. They're pushing as many people through because they can't manage the time properly. They're frustrated with the way things are. The poor little darlings have to work longer hours now. It's shameful that they've actually got to work for the commission and actually schedule proper inspections in. But look, as a tenant, as an occupant, ask for reasonable. Now, and we spoke about this in early 2020, Martin. You can, I believe, and the tribunal will stand behind you, and you can ask for a sanitizing to take place after the open house inspection period. So if your house or if your property has been open for a period, if you've given the agent half an hour, if you've given the agent an hour, I really believe that you as a tenant, as an occupant, even as an owner of the property, should request the agency to sanitize the entire home. And it would be on the agent to do that.
Absolutely. Yeah, well, I think you need to stand your ground at the moment because obviously, as you say, agents can be quite pushy, and of course they make these sort of obscure, not threats exactly, but just, a little bit of pushiness that really is too far. But you have to stand your ground, particularly now. And as you say, if there is a visit, and after the visit you feel uncomfortable, well, then it's up to them to go around and clean up after themselves.
Well, that's correct, and I would go like we spoke about in early 2020, Martin. You've got to ask them. I would ask them to take the shoes off. I would make sure that they don't touch anything in the property. Hence the reason why you don't know who's going to open what, and touch what, and all sorts of things could go amiss. So, but look, they're just for me that under these circumstances, under the times that we're living in, that is reasonable. Now, let's look at the other side of that coin, Martin. If you're a buyer and you're now expected to inspect the property in 5 or 10 minutes and make an assessment of whether or not the property is of good value or not, or anything that's been done to the property has been done correctly or not, and on top of that, now you're asked. You're almost forced to accept the building and pest report that the vendors and the agents provide. Well, yeah, you're in a world of caca on that side as well. As a buyer, and this is why I say buyer beware. This is where you've got to make sure that you've got everything, all your checks and balances in place, and make sure that that if you're going to be inspecting the property, you ask for that little bit of extra time. Look, here's a tip for our viewers, for our followers, the ones that are inspecting homes, either for a rental or to buy. Pick the time. If the agent says the house is going to be open between 1 and 1:30, let's say, on a given day, right? Turn up 5 or 10 minutes before 1. Be the first one to take the first appointment. Take the first appointment, or take the last appointment that they've scheduled for access with the tenant or with the owner. That way, you can have that little bit of that leeway, and that's what I do. If the agent says the house is going to be open from 1 to, we're scheduling people in from 1 o'clock till 1:30. I usually say, let me have the 1 o'clock, because I usually get there when the agent gets there, which is about 10, 15 minutes earlier as they prepare, and then I start doing my inspections. Or I take the last appointment so I can sort of, stay back and give myself an extra 5, 7, 10 minutes, depending on how the agent feels and whether or not the agent's got to run off to the next inspection.
Absolutely. Yeah, useful tip that. I often try to go at the end of the time, because, as you say, then you've got a little bit less pressure on, particularly now. An interesting question as well, I saw in one of the articles, real estate agents may be required to get the COVID jab.
Look, this is something that an auctioneer or a trainer, Tom Panos, has been talking about. And also he brings out some interesting points in the article, as well as in one of his podcasts that I listen to. And quite frankly, he makes valid points, and that is that people are going to be requesting or asking agents if they're vaccinated or not vaccinated, in order to feel more comfortable, and it's going to give the ones that are a leading edge over the ones that aren't, unless they could overcome that hurdle of fear that the property owners would have, right? So, but what I take beef to is with the REI New South Wales and the CEO. I mean, he's a lawyer, for crying out loud, and he should know better. I mean, these wannabe politicians and wannabe dictators, as far as I'm concerned. They don't just want to be politicians, but they just want to be dictators, the REI New South Wales and the cronies that run it. He's a lawyer. He should know better than to push and force people to get vaccinated or not get vaccinated, to get vaccinated. It's a huge push. Quite frankly, Martin, I think that as they do go, if REI New South Wales do get in the year of the government, and they do mandate that, they make it like they did with the other food processing plant in Melbourne, and now there's being a boycott. I believe this is going to put a lot of pressure on agents that are going to have to choose whether or not they stay in the industry, or whether or not they stay in whether or not they're going to be employed. Some of the stories that I've been hearing about some of my colleagues in different offices around Sydney as to the pressure that they've been put under by their by the agency licensees or owners, it's absolutely mind-boggling. Look, I'm not an anti-vaxxer. I'm not, each to their own. That you make up your own decision. But when you start pushing things on people, and you start, I'm sure there's going to be a lot going to be said in the future. But I think this is going to be more pressure on agents that, quite frankly, there's a lot of agents that aren't making much of a commission and are about to leave the industry. And we're going to have a lot of agents on the dole queue sooner than later.
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah. Interestingly, the ABS last week published the latest wage growth statistics, right? And up until quite recently, the real estate sector was doing very well, but suddenly it's dropping, right? And they were right down near the bottom of a number of categories. Some others were doing better, but very interesting that it's consistent. What I'm also seeing as well from my surveys, that there are a number of agents. This is the SME surveys, who basically are saying, we can't make this work anymore. This is uneconomic. We can't go on borrowing. We can't go and put it on credit cards. So with the low turnover of sales, with the extra effort that's required, now all the COVID-related things as well, I think this is going to put a lot more pressure on people exiting the industry.
Of course it is. See, and you and I have been talking about this even before the pandemic, since 2019. I mean, the highest number of properties on market and the highest number of properties that got sold was around 2015. Phil Seuss put those stats up, Lindsay David. They've got all those stats from that period, and since then the listing numbers had waned. In 2015 there was roughly around 49,000 real estate agents in New South Wales, and now we've got from about 2 years ago there was projections from 4 years before that, which was about 54,000. There were projections that we're going to get closer to 57,000. Now, not all are active, but as I've said all along, there's 27,000 real estate agents or thereabouts that are active in Sydney alone, and of which a good 15,000 of them are selling agents. So when you run the figures and you do the math with regards to how many properties are being sold, how many properties are listed on market for sale, how many properties get sold, and then you start working out averages as to the commissions. On average now it's about 1.5. A couple of years ago it was 1.7. 5 years ago it was 2% commission. But if you work it now around the 1.5 that agents are getting for the sale of a property, again on average at 1.2 million. Is the average home in freestanding home in Sydney. So when you do the math, you across the board in Sydney alone, you're talking about around about $300 a week that real estate agents, selling agents, are making on average. Now, some are earning a lot more. Others are not even earning anything for months on end. So that's right. So there is a lot of pressure, but that's been consistent from 2015, and it's only increased. And the pandemic. And since 2020 has even created more of an issue, and particularly now when we've had the least amount of listings on market than what I've ever seen in the history of my career in the industry, Martin.
Absolutely, yes. Well, the listings are way down. But one of the other interesting observations is a number of agents still have these large, swanky cars, which take a lot of money to run. Maybe they should downsize.
Well, look, as I said, Martin, what saved the industry in 2019? 2020, I thought, was going to be when we were going to get an exodus of about 30 to 40% of offices closing down. Across New South Wales, there's close to 9,000 offices, registered offices. And I really believe that we were going to get about 30 to 40%. But in actual fact, a lot of our offices were staying afloat because, as I've said, and I was reporting, that a lot of people were basically running on the smell of an oily rag, and they're already tapped into all the equity in the principal places of residence. Some agencies that I know very, personally were running on the third, fourth credit card that were maxed out. But this pandemic and the property price growth gave them a lifeline. It really gave them a lifeline, because then the licensees tapped into the further equity that they build in the properties, whether it be principal places or residence or investment properties, and they were able to draw down. But again, it goes back to the simple mathematics of how many properties are being sold per week, how many agents are in Sydney, and then you find out that only 40 to 50% are really making an income to stay afloat, and I would dare say that only 20% are really making a decent coin to maintain those swanky cars.
Absolutely. Yeah, well, I expect a few more cars coming on in the next few months. In fact, not just from the real estate sector, but I'm also seeing the same in some other sectors too, because a lot of SMEs are really under the pressure now. The level of financial support that's coming through is very much lower than it was last time around. And of course, the unknown journey from this point forward as to how many months and what type of lockdowns means it's very, very uncertain. So a lot of people aren't able or indeed willing to get ever more credit from the bank or anywhere else. So, it really is a pretty uncomfortable time, I think. Now, you sent me another show, a YouTube show, right? And it was actually not even an Australian show. What on earth is going on, Edwin? Are you out of material?
No. I thought it was rather interesting, Martin. It goes hand in hand with what we've been discussing, and with these tighter lockdowns in that I'm told that are going to happen in Melbourne. And quite frankly, I'm poised for stricter lockdowns in Sydney as well. Hence the reason why I'm pushing ahead and going hell for leather with the renovations, because there's going to be a lot more restrictions in the construction industry, as far as I can see from my standpoint, and materials are going to get tighter. So look, the alternative is for the Melbournians and the Sydney-siders is we all move to Sicily, to Camerata. I mean, you look at the upside, Martin. You've got renovators delights, by the truckload. You've got you live in the European in the European part of the world, and cosmopolitan and everything, and the entry point is €1, and you can go all the way up to a few $1,000s for a terrace. What more can you want, man?
A different price point than what we got in Australia. It's amazing.
Well, the only thing is they are renovators' delights. So
yeah. Can you get the traders to fix them up? That's the question.
Well, I think they're old school. I think that you would get the traders. It's the materials that's the main concern, and this is something that, again, I can't stress enough with from what we're seeing and in the ongoing rhetoric that you hear from our governors and our politicians as to how this is going to go and play out, and also what we're hearing from our WeChat chatters and what's happened and what we shared last week or the week before with regards to the value of the goods in a container must exceed that $70,000 US in order for the shipping companies to transport them. Otherwise, you're not going to get this stuff out. So, you start putting all these things together, and then the movement in Sydney with regards to, and the chatter with the tradies that we've engaged, the friends, and the broader community that we're in touch with, and you hear what's happening there, and it's just it's not looking good in the near future anyway. I mean, I hope it does get better by the time we get to December in January. But if you got to do things, do them quickly, and if you're going to buy now, even if you have to wait 3, 4, 5 weeks for the materials to arrive, I think that the delays are only going to get longer and longer.
Well, I think that's right, and it's interesting. The shipping container costs continue to rise if you look at the weekly indices, right? So moving stuff around the world is still more expensive than it was. And the other interesting thing, which is also worth reflecting on with regard to Australia, Edwin, is iron ore. The iron ore price has really dropped way back from where it was. It was above 200. It's now significantly down. That's because China's basically just turned the dial back, and they're not actually importing as much. And the expectation, I think, from China is they're not going to have such a significant demand. Neither are they going to sell as much iron ore materials that in terms of exports later. So there's a real big shift happening. And, to add everything else over the top, and we've got COVID and we've got the lockdowns, but I think the China thing is really, really significant.
Yeah, well, the base materials in China, as our WeChat chatterers have been telling us for months and almost a year, is the base materials we're getting more and more expensive, and therefore things are going to cost more to manufacture and put together. With iron ore, it's no surprise, and it's not so much that they're not dialing down on manufacturing or production over in China. It's the other thing is don't forget they started cranking up the mines in the countries that they've introduced the support, the One Belt One Road policies and the support of those countries, and they're basically now cashing out, one would say. Not only that, but our WeChat chatters have also been talking about the fact that in Indonesia where mining companies that were co-owned by Australian syndicates and companies and Chinese as well as the Indonesian governments, obviously then we got pushed out of that equation, and that certain companies shut down and only to reopen under different entities, but the mining the interest in the mining still stands, and the beneficiaries of that is obviously China, and we get pushed to the side because of all the geopolitical fiasco that's been going on with regards to our government and our government policies, and also in China and the relationship breakdown that we've had there. So look, it's nothing that we didn't see, that we didn't discuss from many months ago. We broke that and now it's really only just come to pass. So it's just one of those things. Hence the reason why people have got to be careful. And this is one of the tips, perhaps, that the big tip for today's rant, and that is, now if you are going to buy a Renovator's Delight, you better make sure that you're going to have the materials on hand in order to finish the job, to start and finish, and not get caught with your pants down. Also, you better make sure that you've got your trades, or the tradespeople that you're going to engage are able to start and complete the job. I'm blessed and I'm fortunate because we've got teams all over Sydney, and the teams that we're using in where I'm at are local, and they're very good, and these are teams that we built over the years. We can there are certain teams that can't move. Obviously the workers can't move, and they're literally starving for things to happen, and really they're unable to put food on the table. They're coming to the end of their savings, but in a lot of areas there are some teams that they can move around, and the trades are local, and they can work locally, and all those things are in place. So it's one of those things, Martin, that you've got to check these properties very, very carefully. And if you are going to be buying these Renovator's Delights, you got to make sure that you've got all these other things in place before you do so. And this is something that as much as I love to buy properties that have got more issues that scare the crap out of your typical buyer, because that means there's less competition, I've also got to now be careful as to how I look and my team looks at property for our clients, in order not to put them in a precarious situation as well.
Yeah, that's a very good advice, Edwin. I've noticed a couple of conversations I've had recently where people had actually committed to a particular transaction with a particular certain investment level for renovation and fixing up, right? But unfortunately, those prices were not actually locked away, right? So you've always got the variations clauses, materials, and suddenly people are finding that the price that they thought they were locked into and the mortgage that they had actually supporting it is insufficient to cover all of the extra costs that are now piling up, right? And so they're in this situation where they've already committed to the transaction, so they're sort of in flight, and yet at the end of the day, they're going to end up with either a property that's not going to be completely renovated, or a property that's going to be completely renovated with the mortgage just way higher than they ever thought they were going to actually commit to. And even in some cases, lenders now saying, oh, we can't lend you that much. So there are really, really important issues for people to think about as they sort of engage around this, and make sure they've got all of the things in a row and all checked off. Otherwise, you can actually end up, frankly, being caught.
Yeah, and yeah, like with regards to certain aspects or certain parts of a house. And the last thing you want to be doing is living in a property where you've got half renovated and not complete, and you're forced to move in. You're forced to move in because your tenancy, if you're that's now over. All these complications that are just piling on top of things, and all because not because of all because our the government policies and the mandates and the policies that they've got around trades and movement and everything else are all over the shop. And this is it's the confusion that's created all these all these problems. And yeah, look, we could talk till the cows come home with regards to all that, but in essence, the basic thing is now you've got to be more diligent when you're inspecting a property, yet you don't have much time. So you've got to engage the likes of professional building and building and pest inspectors that are going to act for you, not act for the vendor or the real estate agent. And in that thread of that we discussed earlier with Rihanna, it's interesting in that thread that it's a really, really interesting thread, Martin, because in the conversations and what she points out over the course of that thread, the different conversations, being a tenant, she knows the property inside out, and she knows the property that's got major issues to one side of the house, but yet the agent and the reports that have been given out by the agent don't identify those issues, and she's been complaining about those issues during her tenure in that property, and yet this is what you find. But people are going to fall for those tactics, fall for those tricks, because the agent's interest is only in lining their pocket, and not in providing sound and good advice.
Well, as we've said so many times, Edwin, and just to reiterate, you have to do your due diligence, right? You have to do that before you commit, and that's from everything from asbestos, wiring, structural defects, all of those things. Plus, of course, if it's a strata, then look at the strata arrangements and agreements as well, and the common areas. There are so many things that people need to check off. And, the danger is you cut corners, particularly, as you say, if you've got a very limited window. But unfortunately, people are going to get caught out. And at the end of the day, agents are there to make a deal at any price, not actually to represent your interests as a potential buyer. They're, if anything, more likely to represent the interests of the seller, right, who's just trying to get shot of the property. So you have to do the work. You have to make sure that you've got all the bases covered before you commit. Never has that been more important than now.
Well, that's correct. And going back to the initial conversation, and that's basically because of all the pressures and what you brought out in your video earlier on today that you shared, and with regards to the inspections, people are relying more on video conferencing and video tours of homes by real estate agents and buying sight unseen, which is crazy. Absolutely crazy, and relying on the so-called reports that are provided by the site. Let's the simple and the black and white nature of this industry is that the selling agent works for the vendor. They don't work for you, the buyer. They work for the vendor, and they will do whatever it takes to get the property sold, to get the best price or the better price or the most they can for the vendor. They don't work for you, and people have got to understand that. And you've got to walk in with that in mind. And when you've got that in mind, then you realize that no matter what the agent says, what they tell you, what they discuss with you, don't take it as gospel, but unfortunately, many do, and then they fall into those traps, and it's going to get tougher and tougher, Martin. So here we go. Here we are, and I think it's only going to get more precarious as we move forward. With regards to listing numbers, I think it's just going to be a wait and see until spring to see what happens and see who's going to be more at ease to open their homes, to have people through. I know a lot of agents have got listings off market that we follow, and we obviously discuss with them on behalf of our clients. But there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of concern, there's a lot of not knowing how to move forward. But then again, in your video that you brought out earlier on, Martin, with you also talk about the not only the exit costs but also the in costs when you buy again.
Yeah.
So they're they're very high. Stamp duty is almost 5% of the value of a property, and so they're all the things that people are going to be considering. So it's a little bit turbulent. My thing now is unless you can get the property pre-auction, you're not really getting a great deal. And if you're getting something that's advertised, again, you're not getting the best deal. You really got to chase those the genuine off-market properties, or the ones that have lingered on for a little bit more because of the bad marketing, and make an assessment and see why it's being on market and it didn't sell at auction. So, yeah. They're my tips. They're my thoughts for the rant for this Monday, Martin, and I hope they're of value to our viewers and our followers.
Well, as always, Edwin, very insightful, and we just keep underscoring some of the same messages, but even more so, right? Because every time we come on, it's even more mad. So we're in a mad world. So therefore, folks, be cautious, be careful, don't get caught out in this mad world. And we'll do it all again next week, Edwin. Who knows what will have happened over that next 7 days, eh?
Oh, look, it just gets better and better each week, Martin. The more we talk about trying to see what's going to happen next week and the excitement, the world is certainly getting more and more interesting and more and more, how can I put it, more and more in line with my thoughts is that you just got to head down, tail up, and just get working hard and be prepared, because I'm still a believer that 2022 is even going to be a little bit more turbulent, economically wise, work wise, and not knowing with what's going to happen with this COVID mandates or vaccine passports and so on. But look, if you prepare, the main thing is that our viewers, our followers, are preparing. And that's the message across the board that we've been saying from day one, is just prepare, regardless. Prepare for the worst. And if it doesn't happen, great. At least you're prepared and you've got something, you put something in place that you wouldn't have otherwise done so.
Yeah. Well, as I sometimes say, expect the unexpected. It's probably more important than ever. Thanks, Edwin. See you next time. Take care.
Thank you, Martin. All the best.
Bye.